everybody. Randy Patterson here again with Boomerocity. I know this band is probably, some of you are going to think, hey, this is the 80s band and you're mostly 70s and 60s, Randy. What's with bringing up the Smithereens? Well, you obviously haven't listened to the Smithereens if you're asking me that question, because the Smithereens is a newer, great classic rock band, in my opinion. I've loved their sound. They have that mix of the Beatles and the Who and, several others in there. And they just always have that consistency about them in their sound. They always sound classic, and yet they're always coming out, or we're always coming out with new music. And then it got kind of quiet for a while. Well, now they have a new old album, or an old new album, however you want to call something that's been pulled out of the archives, that they've dusted off and are presenting it to us fans. And believe me, folks, if you love the Smithereens, or if you love classic rock, you're going to want to hear this album, because it is great. Even though it was recorded back, 20 some odd years ago, 30 some odd years ago, this album sounds like it was just recorded yesterday. It's got that classic foundation to it that we all love, and yet it's new and it's fresh, even though it was recorded that far back. So I love the album. I think you guys will too, if you like that kind of sound like I do. So I got to talk with the band founding member, Jim Babjak, and we had a great talk about the Smithereens and what the story behind this album, some of the memories it evoked and some of the feelings. And he kind of let me know something about him that I didn't know. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You can listen to the interview, because it is fascinating. The story about what he was doing the whole time that the Smithereens have been an entity. And it just elevates my respect for the man orders of magnitude higher than it already was. And believe me, it was high. So without any further ado, here is my first interview with Jim Babjak of the Smithereens. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerocity. Take care. And
Hi.
We're on.
I was just pressing some buttons here.
Hey, I love your background, man. I think I could spend a lot of time back in there.
Oh, well, it's my living room, which is now a library, where because nobody uses a living room, so I figured I'd make it into a library.
There you go.
But I also have vinyl in this room. I have a turntable and records, and this is where I read the paper in the morning and listen to records.
Very cool. Well, how did the pandemic affect you? I'm sure, like all other artists, you spent a lot of time creating and trying to make the most of it without going stir crazy all the time, huh?
I wasn't stir crazy at all. I actually had a day job for 19 years in the corporate world that people didn't really know about.
Oh.
But during COVID, they outsourced my job to India. So I had to train them for 3 months, and they gave me a severance, and it's like, look, I'm going to be 65 in 2 months, so I was going to leave anyway. So this is a good thing. So yeah, I was busy.
So are you doing any gigs yet? Or what are you guys do? Super. What are you seeing any changes in how the gigs are going since the pandemic?
Oh, they've been great. People started coming out again, and we're happy to see them, and they're happy to see us, apparently. Mm-hmm. So it's been great, and it's slowly building. I mean, we do an average of maybe 3-4 shows a month. So that's perfect for me.
Well, I know that as a fan, we're all glad to see live shows again. It was about a year ago that they started happening. I think the first big one I went to was right out a year ago, and it was Clapton over in Nashville. And boy, what a way to start seeing shows again, And I know you're fans, me being one of them, glad to see you guys back out on the road doing things. And I'm thrilled about this new album, this lost album you guys come out with. I noticed, and in fact, Wendy pitched me another guy that just come out with an archived album, Cosmo Clifford from CCR, And so I find it's interesting that guys like you are had these little golden nuggets set aside and saved them until now. What's your story behind this one? I mean, I think it's phenomenal. Sounds like you guys just recorded it.
Yeah, it's not even quite finished because we kind of left them as it was back in the day. Well, the Smithereens have always been survivors. It took us 5 years before we got a record deal, and Dennis and I and Mike have been playing years before we even met Pat. So, we paid our dues, as they say, and still paying it. So by 1993, grunge was in full stride, and there was a new CEO of Capitol, or president, or whatever you want to call him, came in and decided he wants to get rid of all the older acts, which I was all of like 30 or something. I was so old, but
decrepit.
yeah, and our last album there, right before that, sold 350,000 copies. So they considered that a flop, which I find truly amazing. I just think the guy didn't like us, this new president. So anyway, we decided to, and I was having a house built. The house I'm in right now was being built then, and I'm like, what am I going to do? I got to get a job or something. Eventually, I did, but so we decided to go into the studio and record everything that we have, everything in the kitchen sink, just to see what would, how it sounds, because you never know. You do a demo, but then when the band works on it and fine tunes it, it comes out, either better or worse. So we did that, and we recorded 2 albums worth of material. And then when we got signed to RCA later in the year, we re-recorded half of it, the half that made sense together to become A Date with the Smithereens. And the other half was just left, and we just moved on. We recorded other albums, we toured. I got a day job for close to 20 years, but I had a lot of vacation time. I was lucky in that I had 6 weeks vacation every year, and I was able to use it for touring and recording, and then a lot of gigs were on the weekends. So, and I kept it secret from my coworkers for many years until later on when somebody saw me on the internet and said, I know who you are. And I'm like, yeah, who am I? It's none of your business. Keep moving. So, no, I was pretty anonymous at work. I just sat in my cubicle and did my work. But anyway, so that's what happened. And in the interim, I also recorded 2 albums worth of solo material that I haven't released, and it's all done. So now that I have a little more time, I can organize everything and start putting it out. Putting out a Christmas single, a solo one that I did back in 1995.
Wow,
it's going to be on vinyl. So it goes to show, and then there's going to be some more Smithereens material. And at the same time, I'm writing new songs with Robin Wilson and Marshall Crenshaw.
Wow.
And there will be a new Smithereens record. What did you say earlier? That was an interesting thing. When we first started, I should have written it down because it sounded like a good title. Not moving on, but
leaning into the going forward into the future, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
I say so many great things, Jim. I forget.
I'll have to listen to the podcast and then write it down.
There you go. Now you've got a motivation to do that.
I know what it is. New adventures.
Yeah.
Because that's what life is. People die. Family members and friends, and you get to a certain age, but you got to keep moving.
That's right. You can't get stagnant on anything. Yeah, you do. You don't want your body or your heart or your mind to atrophy at all.
Right.
You've got to keep it fed. You got to keep it growing, and until our time is up. That's all we can do, But
I'm going to
I'm
make the
curious.
most of it.
That's right. Exactly. I realize this is probably going to be a dumb question, and if it is, I hope it's the only one I ask. But when you dusted off this album and you were getting it ready for public consumption, I'm sure it had to bring back some old emotions, especially with you guys losing Pat a couple of years ago. I mean, what was that? Was it kind of bittersweet? What was it for you guys to get this thing ready?
Yeah, I teared up a little bit listening to it, because it was long forgotten and it sounded so good. I love a lot of the songs on there, and um, yeah, I guess it is bittersweet. I think I might have mentioned this to Pat maybe 10 years ago or something that because I did have a cassette tape of it then, and I said, but I don't know, things got in the way. Um, So yeah, I don't know. I figured if we like it, our fans must really like it, like hearing this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like a found treasure. It's like it's a time capsule of what we were like back then.
Well, I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but that's one thing I've always liked about the Smithereens. You guys have always been great with a classic sound, even though you're coming out with new stuff, and Cosmos stuff out of the archives was the same way. And that's what I love. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody can bring something back from the past and it sound fresh and new and sound, like your trademark. Some people need to realize that stuff is in the archive for a very good reason and maybe never to be heard again, but not in your guys' case. I mean, this album is just, like I said, it's fresh, it's great, it's relevant. And, I just find that astonishing that is that way. And that it's part of your trademark is that you can, create new classic sounds and new classic songs. And that's what I love about you guys. You have that perfect blend of all the big bands and plus your own signature to it. And that's what makes the Smithereens, in my opinion.
Oh, thank you. And and there was no record company involvement with this, like there were for some albums. Our first album, especially for you, had no record company involvement at all, because we actually recorded half that album before we even had a deal with Enigma, which eventually was distributed by Capitol Records. So, because Don Dixon came in after the fact, and then we recorded 6 more songs and fixed up the first 6, and that was the first album. We were kind of left alone for the Green Thoughts album too, but then by Smithereens 11 and Blow Up, we were getting a lot of, it's got to be radio friendly. You got to use a click track. This doesn't sound like a single, blah, blah, blah. So when we came out with the 2011 album, I don't know if you heard that one, that was also just us. And so hopefully we can keep doing that, because I'm not interested in a record deal. We just put it out ourselves. It's not like we're going to get radio airplay. I mean, U2, Pearl Jam, none of their new albums get radio airplay. Stations don't want to play the old stuff, or old bands rather. So we're just making
people
records.
Don't listen to radio much anymore. If they do, it's probably satellite, or they're going to hit Spotify or something like that, right?
So. Yeah. So we're making records for ourselves, like we always wanted to do, like we started out doing. We got a little sidetracked there, but well, there's always sidetracking going on. Something happens,
Yep.
You got to keep rolling with the punches.
That's right. Yeah. So I know when I go back and, for me, it's different. Obviously, I'm not a musician of any way, shape, or form. But when I go back and reread some of my old work, older interviews, especially among the first ones, I still blush when I read those. But there's some stuff that I know I did right in the beginning, and it's like, wow, I need to go back to that. I need to redo that again and start using, these kinds of questions or this kind of technique or whatever the case may be. When you guys went back for this Lost album and started, getting it ready for prime time, did you rediscover anything and thinking, hey, you know what, when we hit the road again, let's do this, or we need to start writing more like that? Was there anything like that uncovered?
Not that I think of. No, I can't think of anything like that. Pat ended up recording 2 of those songs for a solo record. I think we re-recorded one of them that was, or 2 of them was almost on a date with the Smithereens, but it didn't work out. So no, this is an orphaned album, is what it is.
Well, it speaks to your consistency too. You guys are solid, steady, and fans know what to expect. And yet we're still always pleasantly surprised when we get what we expect, because it doesn't always work that way with bands. We wait for something, and as a fan, I know we can be guilty of wanting to cast bands into a mold, and they better not break it, right? But
yeah,
and there, sometimes that works well, sometimes it doesn't. But this one here, just curious, what song would you point to as a calling card on there that you'd say, hey, you know what, if you listen to this one and like it, you're really gonna kind of dig the rest of the album?
It's strange. Like, if that album was being made while we were on a major record label, they would not approve of it because there's too many styles on it. There's heavy stuff. There's very light stuff. There's ballads. It's not to compare it to the White Album, but kind of like the White Album, where I remember when we were on a major label, they said, yeah, you can't do that. You have to stick to a certain thing. Like, when we did Had a Hit with Girl Like You, they wanted another Girl Like You, which ended up being Top of the Pops. And I'm like, I didn't really like that. I always felt like they were clipping our wings, and, it's just too much of too many styles on that record. But I like that,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to hear the same thing over and over again. And we always tried with our albums to mix it up a bit, but the average listener just thinks of us as Girl Like You, Behind the Wall Sleep, the heavier stuff, because that's what radio gravitated towards. But there's a lot more out there, and I forgot what your original question was. Sorry.
Which song would be the calling card?
Oh, from this album?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess that's why I said there's too many different styles on it. So I think Don't Look Down is one of my favorites.
That's what I was going to say. I love that one.
Out of This World, I would love. I would have re-recorded to just make it better, because these were all pretty much demos produced by us, but good enough to release. What else? I really like. Well, the ones I wrote, Face the World with that on my own, Face the World with Pride, and I'm Sexy, which I don't think I'm sexy, by the way. No, I wrote that song about, I was in a store one time, and a woman was trying on a dress, and she wasn't particularly like what society would have thought of as a beautiful person, but she was admiring herself in the mirror with this dress, and just the look on her face, like she was so thrilled and happy about how she felt and looked, so that's what inspired that song. And I actually thought it would be an anthem, I'm sexy, I don't look the way I feel, I'm angry, there's a smile on my face, I'm lazy when I know there's work to do, and I'm lonely, and I know that you are too. So I thought it would be a great anthem, but it didn't stick. Maybe because the title, But you know. So anyway, that and one of my favorites is also "Stop Bringing Me Down." It's kind of long and slow, but it's heavy, and I wish I would have been able to add more guitar to it back then. But I like the theme of it, because it's about losing a record contract and having to get a job,
Mm-hmm.
and then moving on. So that song is kind of close to my heart too.
I can relate. What's the feedback been from those who've been able to hear it? Family, friends, acquaintances.
I haven't played it for anybody. I actually just got it yesterday. So I was just looking at the cover and the liner notes. It's a nice package. Actually, I'm pretty impressed with it.
I had the download from Wendy on it, so I haven't seen the package or anything, so I don't even know, other than this cover, there was no liner notes to read except for the one page, that type of thing. So, yeah. Why do you think, and I go back, this kind of goes back to what I said a couple minutes ago, you guys have a classic sound, which in my opinion is what stands so strong, what has given the Smithereens catalog such legs, and such longevity. What is it about that sound, in your opinion, and let's just call it all classic rock for the sake of conversation? What is it about that even generations since ours, they turned to that, and even Guitar Hero, when that was a big thing, they were using classic rock stuff. What is it about our generation's music that gives it such legs and such appeal long after our youth has gone by the wayside?
Well, it's probably because we went back to the roots. Way back to the roots. I remember when disco was around, and I'm like, I'm not a disco hater, but I'm like, I don't really dig this kind of stuff. So I went back, and luckily in the early '70s there were these reunion concerts of all the oldies acts were playing, having these shows. So I went backwards. I started listening to the early stuff, Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, Elvis, and then even further back, even the Muddy Waters and blues. And I think it's the foundation that we have, and that we're self-taught. Although I did have accordion lessons when I was a kid and violin lessons. And I did take some guitar lessons for a short while, but like I tell people, it was like notes that I had to learn to play Mary Had a Little Lamb or something. So I would put a Beatles record on the turntable and put the needle back and forth until I could figure out, what they're doing, which I never really mastered. But I play by ear, and I bought a book of chords, how to make chords, which I'm probably playing wrong because of the fingering. I don't know where to put the fingers. So, and then Dennis and I, we just, we would play every day after school, and I met him in freshman year. And we'd go record shopping in the summer. We were only 20 miles from New York, so we'd get on the bus when we were 14, 15, 16, and go scour all the used record stores, and we would find mono copies of the Kinks albums for 99 cents. Just building up our catalog and education. And I absorbed everything. People ask about influences. Yeah, okay, the Beatles, the Kinks, Who, but there's a lot more than that. It was everything. It was everything. Even the Archies. Sugar. Whatever I heard on the radio as a kid, and classic. Perez Prado, the band leader. There's a song by him called, I think, Cherry Blossom White, or Apple, or Cherry Blossom Pink, Apple White, or something like that. I love that song. It's just you hear it in movies sometimes, and I just like all kinds of music. So going back to your question, I think it's the roots that we have, and combined with the fact that we never followed any trends. I remember when we first started playing original music, and club owners would say, well, you should really think about using a synthesizer because that's what's in right now, or grow your hair long, or wear certain kind of clothes. I'm like, that's not going to work for us. We play from the heart, and I think the passion we have for music in general and playing from the heart is probably what gives us the longevity. That's all I can think of.
Yeah.
That's a long answer, isn't it?
Well, but it strikes home, because I think that's exactly when you go and you look at all the different other, music that we all still gravitate to, what's still being played on Sirius XM, so on and so forth. It's because of that, that's, it was written that way. And for us listeners, we hear it that way because we then benchmark that song to certain events in our lives, or in certain periods of society, things of that nature. I mean, you hear a Creedence song and you think of some Vietnam footage we saw in the news or in a movie. Music is such a wonderful mile marker.
It's powerful.
It is. And again, going back to the Smithereens work, you guys are remarkable in being able to write the same kind of stuff, and create that same kind of feel. And I think that's why fans love you guys as we do, is because of that. And that's a testament to the quality of your work, both, from a songwriting perspective, musicianship, and performance. It's and I mean that's we need more of that in the business today, I think.
Well, thank you.
You go ahead.
Yeah. No.
I was just going to ask you. So over the years, 40 some odd years now, you guys have seen a lot of changes in the business. You've mentioned the labels. I don't think the label's ability to properly handle talent has improved any. In fact, I think it's probably gone the other way. They have all these 360 deals now that barely leave any meat on the bone for the artists and such. But aside from that, what else have you seen as far as changes in the business that you think are either better or worse than it was when you guys first started hitting it?
For us, it's just that we can now do what we want to do, and not care about any financial rewards or anything like that. As long as we can get by, we've always made money. My money I've never gotten any money from record royalties, any substantial money. I mean, people think I'm wealthy, but we're a working class band, and whatever money or things we've made was from touring, just going out on the road and busting your ass. So what's different? Well, I know one thing that's different. I remember when we were told we had to do videos, and they would cost, between $50,000 and $100,000 to make. And of course, that all came out of our future record royalties, which is why I never got record royalties, because you figure we did like 4 videos per album. That's $200,000, $300,000 each. And, even though we sold about 4 million records for Capitol, it all went towards paying for the videos and studio time. And then I didn't even realize that back then, that when they would take you out to dinner or get a limousine for you to go to Jay Leno or whatever, that all got charged back to us. So what's different now, if you need to do a video? Oh, and the other thing is that there are some videos we'd spend all that money on, and then MTV would decide, we're not going to put it into rotation. So you just threw away $50,000 or $75,000 for what? Because they might play it for a week or something. And now, I guess with these phones, you can make your own video now.
There you go.
And put it on YouTube, and then monetize YouTube if you get enough followers and views, but that's different.
Yeah. It's always remarkable to me. I think I know everything about the music business and how things work and how hard it is to make money. And then I hear more, and one of the first things I heard was that whole thing about how the labels would charge everything back to your, to your account, so to speak. So it made it harder and harder for you guys to claw back any kind of income.
Yeah. I just wish I would have known. Nobody told me. I wish our managers would have told us. I would have said, no, thanks. I don't need to have dinner with you guys. Or we don't need a limousine. I'll take a cab. Because we were always like a working class bunch of guys,
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is studio costs. The Smithereens 11 album and the Blow Up album, both, they each cost around $350,000 to make.
Wow.
The albums we did recently, like the 2011 album, cost us $10,000. So,
well, the technology has created a lot of freedom. I mean, when I launched Boomerocity 13 and a half years ago, I mean, the idea of even doing something like what we're doing now, I did it with phone calls and recorded the conversations, then had to transcribe it. Every 30 minutes of chatter was 2 hours of transcription time,
Yeah.
And it was, painful. I hated having to hear my voice over and over again, But now, technology is a wonderful thing. A lot of the software that I get to use came resident on my Mac. I don't have to go out and buy it. So a lot of great stuff. You can make your own videos and create your own MTV channel for the Smithereens, and for a fraction of the time and cost, and that's and that's what the market's driving towards too. Everybody wants that fragmentation, that siloing down to the molecular level, and it's there's pros and cons, but it makes it easier for you to make money back sooner.
Well, the con, I guess, is you won't become a household name that easily, unless something goes viral or your song ends up in a really big hit movie or even TV commercials. I mean, they used to be frowned upon back in the day because we were offered deals from beer companies and fast food restaurants, and we politely declined, because we weren't all on board with that as band members. But now people want to do that. They want to be in a TV commercial,
Mm-hmm.
to use their songs, because that's, there's probably good money in that. I would know. Although, here's an example. Here's a perfect example. Nissan Maxima used my solo and the bass line to Blood Roses for a Nissan commercial. And I think the record company got like $250,000. And because I didn't get songwriting credit on it, even though I wrote that solo, I didn't get a penny. So, when I saw that commercial, it always like kind of pissed me off. It's like they're using something I came up with from the clear blue sky, and I don't get anything for it. So, yeah. Well, I've let that go a long time ago, but just thought I'd put it out there.
Sorry to knock that scab off, man.
It's all good. I hear it in the supermarket too. I'll hear that, or something I did, and I'm like, damn it, I don't get a goddamn penny.
That's kinds of stuff that needs to change with all these, laws and such. The right people who had, significant contributions to what made a sound happen, whether it's the songwriter, the musician, sure, the labels need to get their piece too, but doggone it. I mean, they're, and all these publishing catalog deals with, ungodly amounts of money being spent to buy catalogs. That's happening for a reason. I don't think we fully know what's coming down the pike on that, but I think, with all that kind of money being shoveled out for catalogs, something's about to change. And all of a sudden, those royalties are going to go in the direction they should have went all along, but now someone else owns the catalog.
Well,
And
the people that are selling it are already very wealthy, and they've already are older, and they're cashing out basically.
yeah.
But I've got 3 kids, and whatever I have, I'm going to hold on to, because long after I'm gone, maybe they can get some grocery money or something.
There you go.
But and then there's a thing called Sound Exchange that I signed up for years ago. That's really helpful, because now, I wish this was around in the 80s for us, or longer for other bands. Is that when there is airplay, now the musicians that played on the record also get a piece of the royalties.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
it's not great, but it's something,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it all adds up. It's better to make a quick dime than a slow dollar, as the old saying goes. So that's, and then get it all in the aggregate, pretty decent. It's like finding change under your couch cushion, So,
yeah.
So what else is on the radar for you in the band? What's coming up in the next year or so?
Well, like I said, working on new material, new album, and then also look at the older stuff and see what makes sense and how to put it out. We're one of the few bands that have never put out a DVD, and people are saying, nobody buys DVDs, but we'll sell whatever we own, masters to CDs at shows, and I think it's time that we do put out some DVDs of live concerts that we've had. So I'm looking through that and getting them digitized. So there's a lot of that going on also. And it's a joy for me to watch these things too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of the quality is not that great. So, I mean, that's a problem, so, but it'll only be available for a website or at shows, because commercially you can't put something like that out.
It's tough.
And nobody's going to carry it anyway,
Yeah. You might be surprised. I mean, I do think, just with your stories of where you guys, you called it being a working class band, but the fact that you guys had day jobs while you were still, well known. I mean, I think that's something kind of cool, and maybe some interviews from the people you worked with, and they go, I didn't know he was with the Smithereens, and I listened to him, things like that. I think there's a market for it. I mean, you see the documentaries on Netflix and on Amazon Prime, and there's sub channels in there. I know Jimi Hendrix's kid sister, she and Yoko Ono have that. What is it? I think it's Epics or something. They're the money and the brains behind that channel, which is a subset to Prime, and that's all they carry is the music related stuff. I think people would love to hear. I mean, I would love for them to only have to come to my channel to listen to what you just had to say, but I know better than that's going to happen. I'll have a small part of that, but I think people would love to have that DVD and see it on their favorite streaming channels, to hear the stories they didn't know were going on while you guys were, hitting it big as the Smithereens. That's just my 2 cents worth.
Yeah. There probably will be a documentary someday, but it's got to be done the right way in the right time.
Yeah, understood. Well, Jim, this was a lot of fun. And when you have that Christmas song come out, let's get back together. We'll do a quick plug on it on Boomerocity. And then anytime you guys have something new coming out, whether it's the new material, they bring, releasing of some archive stuff, or the DVDs like we were just talking about, let's get together. Let's talk about it. And I'll do my part to help plug it a little bit more so you can get a few more sales out of it.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks for your patience, and thanks for meeting with me, and we will talk to you again down the road.
All right. See you down the line.
All right. Stay safe. Take care.
You
Bye-bye.
too. You too. Bye.